I've got my business law class here at Velma Jackson, and we're recording this for our friends over at Ridgeland High School and Germantown High School, and Madison County Schools parent with the Mississippi Supreme Court. And I know you don't look my age, but graduated with me at Madison Central High School in 2000. So
way back when. Yeah.
I was just telling the kids I've known you for 28 years. So that is
Oh
seems
my goodness.
yesterday.
Long time.
We went to school together, but we like I said, you have a great role there in the Supreme Court, and hear about the court system today and all the things they do. Let her in, please. Let her in, please. And if you want to share your screen and show us what all you got going on, hear your story, and you got a really cool educational background as well, and all the stuff you got going on. So, and we got some great questions we're going to get to as well.
Okay, can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay. So yes, I'm Shalon Wansley. I'm a staff attorney at the Mississippi Supreme Court. Let's see. And so just starting off with just, I like to start off with like my background just to show people if you're interested in law, you really can take whatever path you want to get to law school. So as you stated, I did graduate from Madison Central way back when in 2000. And then I attended Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. And if you don't know, it's a historically black college for women in Atlanta. It's part of the Atlanta University Center. So there are a bunch of other colleges in that little area: Morehouse College, Clark Atlanta University, Morris Brown, Morehouse School of Medicine, and some others. But so my major was psychology, and it had a pre-law track. So it really wasn't a minor, but it was a psychology pre-law track that they had for people interested in law school. So I was able to take courses at Spelman, but also at any other school in the Atlanta University Center. So I took a lot of my
Wow.
pre-law classes at Morehouse.
Wow. I did not know that. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
you can cross register at any school.
Wow. That's really cool.
And so I really, honestly, in the beginning, I really didn't want to go to law school. I thought I was going to be a psychologist, but I did pre-law because I was interested in forensics. But I was convinced by a teacher at Tougaloo College. Interestingly enough, in the summers, I would go home back to Madison, but I would work at Tougaloo in their pre-law department. And that professor there is the one who convinced me to attend law school. So I went to the University of Mississippi School of Law, and that's a 3-year program, finished there in 2007. And ever since then, I've been working in the same building. I've just been in different departments.
Wow.
I started, I started off at the Court of Appeals, working for Chief Judge Leslie King, who is from Greenville. And I just rode his coattails on up to the Supreme Court. He was appointed to the Supreme Court, and I was his law clerk then. But now, the department that I am in is 7 of us, and we work for all 9 judges. And so, if you're interested in going to law school, you really can major in whatever you want to. Just as an example, so these pictures are like from my different graduations. But in the little picture with my family, my husband is a lawyer also, and he was a math major. I have a coworker. She went to LSU. She majored in zoology. I don't know what she thought she was going to be doing, majoring in zoology, but she went to law school, and she
Wow.
works with me now. So, and you have people who will go and major in English because law requires a lot of writing, or people who might do political science. But there's really no wrong major. Like law schools like diversity in experience in majors. So whatever you're interested in, I would say if law school is a passion of yours, just major in whatever you're interested in, and you can get there.
And I know you're going to talk about this, but just for anybody watching now and watching later, just because you become an attorney, it's not like the TV shows. You're not just up arguing in front of judges and juries all the time. There are plenty of
No,
attorney jobs that just you can sit behind a desk and read contracts all day, but you just got to be able to interpret
right.
and write.
So the difference, like my husband, for example, he was a federal prosecutor. He isn't anymore, but he was going to court every day, representing the federal government against criminals. But now he is in-house counsel for Walmart. My
Wow.
job at the court, I like Greg, like Greg said, I sit behind my desk. I read case files all day, transcripts all day. I do a lot of research. I do a lot of writing. And so, if you're a shy person, and you're not very interested in doing public speaking or going to court, that scares you, but you're interested in law, there's just so many other things you can do.
But
And I was, go
but
ahead.
we actually do a Supreme Court case a week, looking at some of
Good.
the landmark cases. So what you do is extremely important because you have to help the judges interpret to make these decisions on a state level. It's an extremely important job.
Yeah, basically in my department, what we do is we get a lot of motion. So there is the court has so much going on, and there's some things that the general public it's not published. Like if you know what to look for, you can find it. But the stuff that I end up working on the most, it's just not published. There's so many motions and things that we get, and like he said, it's doing the legwork, doing the research, doing the writing, checking the record to see if an error was made, giving the judges recommendations, things like that. I'm on a rules committee. I do criminal rules, and so those were, for example, the criminal rules were created like a couple years ago. They're very new. Um, and the court just sat down. It's like, okay, we had some informal rules how to handle criminal cases, but they wanted a more formal, a guide to go by. And so if you ever see a rule book, a state court rule book, there's our I mean not federal, but our state criminal rules of procedure that I helped the court come up with. So
Yeah, and like we talked about before in this class, you can say you don't know that stuff all you want, but if it's in there, you got to follow it.
oh yeah, that, and I mean they're very particular about that. Now you have what you call pro se
Yeah,
um, people who represent themselves, but they're held to the same standard as an attorney
yeah.
as far as knowing the rules and reading the rules. Now, of course, the court does give leeway on certain technical things, but for the most part, if you're coming to court, whether you are an attorney or not, you are required to look at the rules and know the rules. Correct. So this now next thing is just a little chart, and I'm sure y'all have heard all about this, just the kind of way the court system works. And basically, with the courts, you have the trial level and you have the appellate level. And at the trial level, they hear all the testimony, they bring in the evidence, and either a jury is going to make the decision or a judge is going to make a decision just based on what type of case it is. And we have what we call limited jurisdiction courts, which, if you see at the bottom, the justice court, municipal court, county court, they have certain limits. Like, for example, justice court can only hear cases that involve $3,500 or less. County court is $200,000 or less. We have special courts like chancery court only hears like domestic issues, property claims, things like that. Circuit court is civil and criminal matters. And once the case works its way through the system, if a party is aggrieved, they can file an appeal. And the way the appeals work, the parties file what we call a brief. It's just basically their arguments. Part of my job is to decide which court reviews the appeal, whether it goes to the Court of Appeals or whether the Supreme Court keeps the case. Now, there are some things by law the Supreme Court is required to keep. Like, for example, we work on death penalty cases. I have my own death penalty load of cases that I have to follow. And it's other things like constitutional challenges and annexations and bonds. Those are things I don't like
Now,
because
and again, and I'm a novice here. Well, I'm a novice here, but just so we can get on the same page for class, an appellate court, the county court, chancery court, they can hear all the new information, hear the witness testimony. But in an appellate court, nothing new can be introduced. They're only hearing what was already said in court and then deciding if that ruling was fair, correct?
right. And it's very important because usually if somebody tries to bring up a new argument on appeal,
Okay.
one of the ways the other side can get it kicked out is to say that's the first time they're raising this issue, so
Okay.
it's waived. It's very few exceptions where you can raise a new issue on appeal, and most of the time it's only in criminal cases where someone is saying that one of their rights has been violated. It's very rare exceptions to bring up a new issue. It's
Yeah, I
only
know in
whatever
death
has been
penalty
raised
cases, there
before.
are some exceptions for if new evidence
Yes,
but that's one of the very rare exceptions.
very rare. And I mean, only because you think about something like a death penalty case or a criminal case, somebody's life basically is on the
Absolutely.
line. So,
Yeah.
of course, there's some leeway there to review. But otherwise, especially civil cases, if you didn't raise it before, then it's tough luck. Exactly.
It's like, it's like I've said in here before, it's not about right and wrong. It's about what the law says.
By what the law says and following the rules.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very important to be able to follow rules. But yeah, after we screen, we call it screening. We screen the case to say the Court of Appeal should have it or the Supreme Court should have it, and it just kind of goes through a procedure where it's very not too exciting, but the parties file their briefs and the court reviews all the arguments and the record and to see if there was an error, and if there was an error, the court can reverse the decision, and you can do a reverse and render, where is the court was wrong and this is what the result should have been, so we're going to tell you the answer. Or you can do what they call reverse and remand, where is the court was wrong, but this needs to go back to court for some extra proceedings, something like that. If the Supreme Court or Court of Appeals believe the trial court was right, then you do what we call affirm, which means the decision stands, basically. And those are like basically the two main dispositions you can have on cases on appeal. So they have, well, how are we going to do questions at the end, or?
Yeah, and they're still turning some in. Well, I have some we're going to get to,
Okay.
but they're still turning them in. They're hearing you speak for a while, and they're going to come up with some questions for you.
Okay. And so even after the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court makes a decision on that appeal, there's what we call a rehearing, where the party can come back and say, well, Supreme Court, I think you got this rule of law wrong. Will you look at this one more time? And then also anybody can appeal from the Mississippi Supreme Court to the U.S. Supreme Court. Very rarely are cases accepted by the U.S. Supreme Court, but we've had a couple in the last few years, and a lot of the times it's, I know one death penalty issue that went to the U.S. Supreme
That was the
Court.
one in Montgomery County, right?
I don't remember the county, but it was Curtis
Yeah,
Flowers.
Curtis Flowers.
Yeah. And so these are, very interesting things. I would say, especially with the Mississippi Supreme Court, we, nationally are kind of known for having a very transparent court system. So if you know a case name or a case number, you can go on our website and type it in, and you can see all the documents that were filed on appeal. You can see the decision that the court made. And so some people read about a case in the newspaper and just kind of go off of whatever that person has said in the newspaper about the case, but you can also go look for yourself. It's on our website. It's readily available to you. So let's tell you a little bit. Go back. This is the building I work in. This is on High Street. It's across from the Capitol and next door to the Attorney General's office. And so the Court of Appeals here, all the judges that are on the Court of Appeals, and there are 10 of them divided into, I think it's like 5 districts. And so this is the court I started with way back when.
Yeah, and I know Judge Latrice Westbrooks is the one for the area of Velma Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
She's in Northeast Madison County, Leake County, Neshoba County, Attala County. So that is the person that these young people.
I don't know if you can see my mouse, but I'm trying to put it as who he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yes. And I run into her often in the building.
No, it's important to know, these young people, it's important to know who is representing them in the court. So that is the person, that you would vote for or against, depending on how you felt, how she's doing. But yeah, she's a very nice person. She is the Court of Appeals judge for this area.
Yes. And he brought up a good point about, a lot of you may be voting age or getting close to voting age. And lots of times people don't know as much about the judges when they're running because they're supposed to be apolitical, which means that when they run, they don't have a party attached to them. They're running kind of like as an independent person. But I would advise you, if you ever, election is coming up, get the ballot, see who's on it. You see some judges to just kind of do some research and see who these people are.
Absolutely.
And so this is the Supreme Court makeup right now. These are the 9 judges. They come from 3 different districts. And our district is, so you look at the first row, you have Jim Kitchens and Leslie King that are sitting on the outside. Those 2 are from our district. And then Kenny Griffiths, if you look at the back row on my side, second one from the left, is in our district. Mm-hmm. And the others, 3 come from South Mississippi, 3 come from North Mississippi. that this is the current makeup of the court, and I work for all of them.
Yeah.
And so you learn this when you start working, when you have 9, 10, however many bosses, you kind of have to switch gears and do things the way this one person likes it, and switch gears again and do it the way this one person likes it. But it's a great group of judges that we have right now, representing our state, and be very proud of the work that they are doing.
Yeah, and just to talk about too about voting, you know, and I've told you this, Justice Kitchens, I've had students meet with him several times, and he always says, if you don't like the job he's doing, you need to go and vote him out. You know, he's
Yes.
very vocal about that. He said, you need to research the decisions I make, and I'm representing you. If you don't like what I do, go in the ballot box and vote me out of office, because he really thinks everybody should have a voice, whether they agree with him or not. So that's what I try to tell these kids. You know, I don't care who you vote for, but you need to go in there and make a decision based on what these people are doing, because the state level affects you way more than the federal level does.
It really does. And then honestly, with, like I said, even, when a party disagrees with a decision the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeals made, and they can go through the process and try to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, but more than likely the U.S. Supreme Court isn't going to accept the case. So the Supreme Court of Mississippi basically has the last say on a lot of these
Absolutely.
issues.
Absolutely.
And he's right, Justice Kitchens, he does say that all the time. You can, a lot of these opinions are available online for free. If you see a headline in the newspaper that says Mississippi Supreme Court did this in this case, you can Google that case and see who wrote the case, which judge actually authored it, and then you can see how the votes were split, like who voted for this opinion, who voted against this opinion, and sometimes they write dissent, so you can see why they voted the way they did. And it takes a little work, but I think it is very important, and just kind of being knowledgeable of what's going on in your state.
Yeah, and that's what Justice Kitchens is encouraged. He said, read what I say, and then just take it a step farther. He also told our young people, we took a group from Velma Jackson to the Supreme Court a few years ago, and his exact quote to them was, if you do not vote, you're spitting on the grave of Medgar Evers. So I thought that was a little extreme, but that's what he told them, which, it's a great point, because
he can be a little extreme, but he's very, very passionate.
Absolutely.
Because these rights are ones that, people came before us, fought for, shed blood and tears for, and so you have to take voting very seriously, and it can be a little intimidating, right? And it can be a little intimidating initially, trying to vote, but all it starts like something as simple as a Google search, or something as simple as reaching out and asking someone that you can feel comfortable with about, a parent, a family member, a teacher, whoever, like, this is my first time voting, or what, I heard about these candidates. What can you tell me about these people? And so, that's all it takes, but it's very important, because, like we said, if you don't like rules that are being made, if you don't like decisions that are being made, and at some point in your life, it may affect you or somewhere you're close to, you need to pay very close attention to people in office, including these judges.
Yep. And they have 6-year terms, correct?
Well, Supreme Court has 8-year terms.
8 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Very long time, but it goes by so quickly. I've been here for a lot of 8-year terms at this point. It goes by very quickly.
And I'll just do that in, because that is on the test at some point.
Oh. Yeah, but the Court of Appeals also, their terms are 8 years. The trial courts are a little different, and I can't remember off the top of my head. They may be 4 years or something like that, but the appellate courts are 8-year terms.
And then I think if I'm not mistaken, again, you're the lawyer, but a county can make their own decisions on how long those terms are, or do they have to follow a state law on that?
I think there's a law that makes it consistent across the state as far as those types of courts are, like the circuit courts and chancery courts. I think that's consistent across the state. Now, people may be doing something different where their municipal courts are concerned, their more local courts are concerned, but statewide, circuit and chancery, they have the same terms. That's all I had, just kind of describing like the court and what we do. So
now, but there's a couple of things I wanted to ask, but you skipped. You're so humble. It's just unbelievable. You missed something very important, and I cannot believe you didn't mention this. As somebody who's known you a long time, I know how smart you are, but you're a first-generation college student.
Oh,
And
you know what?
And
Yeah, I
that's
did
such a
miss
big
that.
deal, because, we have everywhere from 9th to 12th graders in here with us right now. So I think, you went to the same school district and come from the same area, but yet nobody in your family went to college, and you were top 15 in our class with some unbelievable students, and then went to a prestigious college and went to law school, and now you got a great career. So
I'm
we'd be
glad you mentioned that, and
we would
I
be
meant to
remiss
say
if we did
something
not,
about that.
when it comes to you, we would be remiss if we did not talk about that. That's such a big deal.
Yeah. So, there's this preconceived notion about people from Madison County. They just think everybody has money, and we know that's further from the truth, right? I grew up, it wasn't a dirt road, but it was a gravel road where my entire family lived on this one road, and they were workers. They did construction, they drove trucks, they worked in factories, all these things, and nobody before me had attended college. But my grandmother was one of the people that pushed me to go to college, just kind of try to change the trajectory, of the family, because it's just they worked very hard but made very little. They just struggled for the most part, but did their best to make sure that we had everything we needed. My mother, for example, she was a single mom with 4 kids. And when it came time to go to college, of course, she said, I will do whatever I need to do to support you. But, I had to do a lot of work to get scholarships and things because there's no way she could afford, private school tuition.
That is not
Um,
cheap,
Not at all. And then the price
even
has
more so
doubled
now.
since I attended. So, um, I was, lucky enough and had some teachers at Madison Central that supported me, and I became a Gates scholar, so Bill Gates scholarship that paid for my college for me. So yeah, and I'll just say to people, you don't let your circumstances limit or define you. You can, go above and beyond to do anything you want to do. You just have to put the work in and find a network of people to assist you along the way.
Yeah, and also, let's say somebody wants to work in the legal field, but they don't have the time or the money to go to law school. What are some other careers that you guys have down there at the Supreme Court?
Oh, let me grab this because I was thinking about that earlier. Is that there's so many different departments here. Um, so we have like an IT department. We have our own technology department, and they are very instrumental in. They basically created the system that we use to file our cases and log our cases and to get documents in. And there's a electronic court system where some of not all of the state courts, but some of the circuit and chancery courts where all the information is available on the internet. And so, they are very instrumental in the things we do. We also have a clerk's office, and that office is kind of like we call it the front line of defense. And they accept the filings. They do a lot of the FaceTime and talking on the phone with people who are trying to file cases with us and kind of helping them out and doing that. We have a library that's free and open to the public, and we have, several employees there in our library. And see what else. We have a business office, a finance office that helps us not only with our budgets for the court, but they also help us with our insurance and things of that nature. And so it's just so many different things. And because they work in this building and, deal with legal things all the time, they also have to have that knowledge of legal principles and things like that.
And then also, you look at, obviously I'm on the outside looking in, but I think a big misconception in the Black community is that if you talk to an attorney, you're going to jail. But there's a but there but and I obviously I have an outsider's opinion of you on this, but if you look at the necessity for more Black attorneys and for the necessity of um, the family law and the civil attorneys, it's not always, like we said, it's not always what you see on TV.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people get taken advantage of by employers. A lot of people get ripped off by
Oh,
companies.
yeah.
So why is it
Hmm.
important to stay up on this type of stuff and seek legal help if you need it instead of getting screwed over?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And about employers, I know when I was in college, I had a job. This is funny. My first job was working at Popeyes. Okay, I was the drive-through queen. But you find different jobs, especially if young people working, that they will try to get. Not saying that that happened to me, but they will try to get over with you as if they tell you, for example, oh, you need to clock out right now, but I still need you to work. I mean, that's a federal issue
Absolutely.
of, shaving time like that. That's a legal issue that you can go and talk to a lawyer about. And then depending on what type of case it is, not all lawyers are even going to charge you to have a consultation. They might get paid by someone else. Like, for example, if there's a wage dispute situation like that, somebody else will have to pay that legal fee for you, and so, and then also domestic issues like, I want to talk about divorce or, child custody issues, land
Well, and
disputes.
another one too is I tell I tell them, when you have a child, you need to make sure they give you that time off. They cannot make you
Yes,
come back to work. They can't, they don't have to pay you, but they cannot fire you during that time. So it's important that
right.
your rights on
The,
there.
the federal Medical Leave Act, that's a federal issue. And so it's a bunch of different things. Also personal injury, or if you get injured on the job,
Yeah,
workers' comp.
workers'
That's
comp.
another thing where people are always afraid. They get injured on the job. They're so afraid to seek help or talk to a lawyer about it. But that's another area of law where you don't, for the most part, you won't get charged anything unless that attorney recovers for you, or your employer will have to pay that legal fee or something like that. It's
Yeah,
just
and you are
so
legally
many.
entitled to that. Every person working in the state of Mississippi is legally entitled to that, no matter what their age is.
Right.
So,
And
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 I think it's important for, I try to, obviously everybody here is not going to be an attorney, but the main thing is to understand that you need to know your legal rights. You need to know the law on things, and don't let people get over on you or cost you money or cost you your livelihood, because I think we see a lot of that, especially in rural areas, because people just aren't educated.
mhm. Yeah, they don't know, and then they're just sort of afraid to reach out.
Yeah.
And I say it's so many lawyers in the state. Like I said, you can get on it's the Mississippi Bar has a website and has a lawyer directory in it. You can find people based on, what town you're in, to find somebody and call just to get some advice or, direction. So yes, all that's very important.
All right, and before I get to these questions, I do want to talk briefly about your going to a HBCU for undergrad and then a PWI for grad school, because I like getting
Hmm.
opinions on the pros and cons of both, because obviously they both offer things the other one doesn't. So,
Yeah.
what was the big selling point for you to attend an HBCU and then a PWI law school?
So I would say for me in high school, Madison Central is basically like a mini PWI. um, but and it prepared me well academically, but I think just kind of socially, I didn't feel prepared. And so I wanted to go to a place where I could be nurtured and poured into, and Miss Spelman definitely was that place. I think a lot of other people would say that about their HBCU. I learned so much about myself there that I don't think I would be the same person if I had not have gone there. And with HBCUs, it's just kind of like I tell everybody, my professors seem more like my mother's away from home, because I mean they're just committed to making sure that you excel. And it was just a very like warm, welcoming environment. I felt at home, and with the other students, it's like they teach us when we come in the door. Like before in high school, everything's a competition, right? But when we got to college, at Spelman in particular, it's like, look around. These are not your competitors. These are your sisters, and we're going to help each other. And this is how we're going to do it. And so it just gave me so much confidence
That's
just to
awesome.
kind of go forward in life. And then with going to University of Mississippi Law School, it was just, I just kind of felt like it was time for me to come back home. And they actually had at the time, and I don't know if they still do, but they had a good program for students of color as far as tuition assistance goes. And so it was kind of financially beneficial. But I think having that HBCU experience and, the confidence it instilled in me, just kind of, I was confident that I would excel there as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, both
And there
experiences
are
were really
HBCU
good.
law schools. If somebody want to go to PWI undergrad, Southern University in Baton Rouge, Texas Southern
Hmm.
Houston are both HBCU law schools. Um, so
Right.
you can go either route. There's definitely a lot of paths someone could take. I just like hearing
Yeah.
people's take on that have done both, because I think our kids have a lot of options ahead of them, and I think they need to hear all the sides of it. But I do have a few questions here I want to get to. And this first one is Xavier Jackson. He's a ninth grader. And I know you talked about where he went to college, but he asked how many years of college did it take for you to get to the Supreme Court?
Yeah, so college, I completed it in 4 years. I had psychology major, the pre-law track, but it didn't extend my time in it. And depending on your major, like I had some friends that were dual degree, they did like engineering, and so they had to do 5 years. Because I actually do have a friend that was dual degree at Morehouse and Georgia Tech. He did 5 years undergrad, then went to law school for 3 years, and he's now a patent attorney.
Oh,
So it's so many avenues you can go.
yeah. And then this is Korea Baker. She's in 10th grade, and she asked, What's your favorite thing about your job?"
My favorite thing about my job is the people. I don't know that sounds lame, but the court, it's such a close-knit place. And because it's such a great working environment, a lot of us have been here for years. And so, like, I basically grown up around these people. The judge that I used to work for, we were talking the other day, and I was telling him, I was like, I'm turning 40 this year. And he was just so shocked. And he remembered me, starting working for him as a baby lawyer at like 23 years old. And now here I am about to turn 40. And so, they've just, and we've been here for each other through things outside of work. Of course, we're here to help each other with work. I can pop in anybody's office and talk about anything, but just even outside of work to have support through marriage, through kids, through, you know, family illness, things like that, just kind of having that support. And I'll say, no matter what field you go into, like your work family is just as important as your family at home, because you think about it, you spend a lot of your time, or you will be spending a lot of your time in the office. So
It's just, yeah, you cannot there's no way to downplay that. Finding a good work environment is so important, not only for your
yeah,
production, but for your mental health.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's extremely important, and that's a blessing to have that. I have a blessing to have it here as well. But yeah, that everybody does not have that, and you see a lot of people uh, they struggle with that. So that's awesome that you guys have that. This is Anastasia Brown. She's a junior, and she asked, if you were not convinced to go to law school by the professor at Tougaloo, what would have been your other career choice?
So I wanted to be a forensic psychologist because I just thought that I would be like casing serial killers or something. Yeah, I don't know what I thought I was gonna be doing, but I was just so interested in this psychology and then the forensic side of it. I actually had applied to some forensic program somewhere. I don't remember right now, but yeah, I just ended up going into law instead. But that's the path I thought I was going to take.
This is Akale Middleton, and he's also a junior, and he asked, what is the hardest obstacle you've had to face to achieve your goals?
Hmm. That is a good question. They're making me think on a Friday. Let me see. The hardest, a lot it's self-doubt, I think, especially in law school, because law school is very different. Well, I don't know if it's the same because I went forever ago, but in law school, you would go to class for an entire semester and take one test, and
Wow.
that grade in on that one test is your grade for the class.
Yeah, and if you fail, you take
And
it.
right, and that concept was just so crazy to me because you're accustomed to having multiple opportunities to turn in homework, to do tests, to do projects, to do, makeup work, and there was none of that. It was you have this one test and this is your grade. And oh, it was just terrifying. And so I would say just the self-doubt is like, can I do this? I mean, of course, obviously, I went on and I did well, but you know, that self-doubt will get you every time.
Absolutely, and that's in any field. I agree, and I had a similar problem getting into teaching myself. This is Miles Woodard. He's a junior, and he asked, if you could, have you ever had it where you wanted to change a decision after you made it on a case?
Yeah, what happens is I have a lot of time where I go back and forth on something, and especially on the criminal matters, because it could be a real close call sometimes, and those are really important to me because I'm like somebody's life is on the line. If they're sitting in jail for 2 years or 60 years, like whatever it is, time is precious, right? And so you want to make sure you make the right decisions, and so there are times where before the decision goes out where I'm kind of, hesitant. But a good thing about here is a decision is not made by one person. We
Awesome.
have nine people that review the decision, so I can feel comfortable and confident in the decision after nine people have reviewed it and voted, and the majority wins the vote. I can say that we did our due diligence, we did our best, and so yeah. I would say, not that it's something I would want to change after, but beforehand it's a struggle. But I
Yeah.
feel confident in our court.
It, yeah, and that's the thing, even if you don't agree with the overall decision, at least it was seen by several eyes. It wasn't just on a whim by one person.
Yeah, and it's thoughtful consideration because you just have no idea. Like say the things people don't see, how many hours I'm telling you, where we meet about cases and talk about cases and go over the law and do this in back and forth until we get to a decision. So like, it's a lot of thought and consideration going into making these decisions.
Yeah. Now this is Deborah Pierce. She's a senior and one of the most biggest extroverts in the entire school. But she asked, what type of contact and interaction do you have with people outside of the office?
So for me in my role, it's very limited. Um, Pre-COVID, it may be, me going to some type of convention or a bar meeting for lawyers and talking to people that way. But for the most part, in my job, I don't really have to interact with people outside of the court for that, and they don't want us to. And I mean, honestly, because they're very particular about people earwigging, well, put it that way, us. So, for example, like the legislature, they would have this big party every year. And it was always a thing about, can we go to the party? Can we not go to the party? And I think the consensus was it's probably best if we don't go to the party because it may be some of them there that have cases before us and you don't want to get into a conversation and, start talking about things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, but what I do though is I'm involved in other organizations, and that's kind of how I get my, interaction with people is through, non-work related things.
Yes. Well, Shalon, we're almost out of time. I've just got a couple more for you. And I'm so honored to be able to have grown up with someone like you. It's just unbelievable to call you a friend and a classmate. And it's just more testament to our great class at Madison Central. But I do have two questions left for you. One of them
Okay.
funny and one serious. The
Okay.
first one is, as somebody who has known me since we were 12 years old, these kids love to make fun of me and see how lame and tell how lame I am. How much have I changed in 28 years?
You know what? And I was thinking about this the other day. Greg, it just has a natural ability to just like people just love him. I don't know. It's natural. Just the type of person he is, right? And so that has not changed at all. It's just as far as being able to get along with everybody, like no matter, who you are, where you came from, type of situation. That hadn't changed. But it is kind of funny seeing him now as, Mr. Grown Up teaching in the classroom. And I love all your posts when you have, your students come back and look like a proud papa standing up beside them to see that serious side of you.
Well, I appreciate it, and you're you're a great parent as well. You got two little girls doing some awesome things. But before we go, and I asked you this last year, but I want to hear your answer again. Is that me and you the same age, so everybody here at some point they're going to be your age, and just like everybody else here watching, you were a young black student in Madison County with the same obstacles that they're going to face in life. So it's not a matter if, it's a matter of when.
Right.
I'll be the first person to tell you the obstacles that black students have to face is always going to be greater than anybody else. But you obviously overcame those and became extremely successful. So what can they do now to be as successful as you, even if they have no desire to ever get into the legal field?
One thing I think for me in particular was like getting outside of my comfort zone because you have so many obstacles facing you, and then sometimes you just kind of have negative um, views of someone without necessarily getting to know them first. And so it took a lot for me to get outside of my comfort zone and say, okay, I'm in a situation. I'm one of a few Black people in this room, but let me get outside of my comfort zone and just go sit over there and talk to these people and get to know them and just see what's going on, and then so that was very helpful because it just kind of we have a guard up a lot when you have faced with tough situations, just kind of been in environments um like that. And so just being able to get outside of your comfort zone a little bit, and because you never know who's looking, right, who's watching you, because I've met people along the way who I didn't know they remembered me or anything about me. But if, one day they're going to be in a room and your name comes up and somebody's going to say, oh, you know
Happen
what? I met,
all the time, especially in Mississippi.
yeah. And it's people who, you wouldn't think, oh, wow, that conversation we had that actually meant something to them. And then, it helps you later on down the line. So I would say getting outside of your comfort zone and getting to know people of different faith backgrounds, right? Everything is very, very helpful.
Yeah, and along those same lines, even at HBCU, you're going to have international students, Muslim
Yeah.
students, people from all over the world, even at an HBCU. So I think that a lot of our kids say, I don't want to go to an HBCU. I've been around black kids my whole life. That's not the case.
We have white students at our school too. And so
Exactly.
and
But
so you gotta think,
you got them all over the country. It's not,
yeah,
and I understand that you want to broaden your horizons, but the HBCUs, especially in the Atlanta system, do a great job of broadening the horizons for a young person.
it definitely. And I know a lot of schools now, especially Spelman, they require their students to study abroad.
Wow.
So yeah, so bringing up international students is a requirement. I don't know if it's changed during COVID, but it's a requirement for them to study abroad at least one semester.
And that would be at Morehouse for the men as well.
Mhm.
So I know Morehouse and Spelman have the partnership, but once the boys' school,
Got to get outside of your comfort zone, because I know being from small town Mississippi, people don't like to travel that much either. But you have to get outside of your comfort zone, see the world, get to know people.
That's right. Well, Shalon, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. Please give Chris my best.
I will. Thank y'all for having me.
And just again, I'm just honored to have grown up with somebody as amazing as you. You're just always
Likewise, friend.
always an amazing person. All right. Well, I know you're ready to get out of there on your Friday. I'll see you soon, my friend.
Oh, yeah. Y'all have a good day.
All right. See you.